they are and what they do. They are not helping us. So the sixth critical pillar of our growth strategy is ensuring that no one is left behind. This is in keeping with Jamaica's social protection strategy of 2014, which established a social protection floor to provide support to the most vulnerable groups in our society: children, workers, elderly, and persons with disabilities. Growth must benefit all Jamaicans. As I said, big business, small, urban, rural, young, not so young. This inclusive approach will drive our efforts to create economic opportunities that are accessible to every Jamaican. And this means fostering growth that delivers for all sectors of society and building a robust social safety net to protect our most vulnerable citizens. Step by step, we are ensuring that every Jamaican has access to the social protection they deserve. In 2021, we introduced the Social Pension Program, which now provides a guaranteed income for 15,000 vulnerable Jamaicans aged 75 and older. We have increased the investment in the new social housing program, which aims to improve the housing condition of the country's poor and indigent population. We now have over 300 houses handed over or in construction. That's over 1,000 persons benefiting with better housing condition. In 2022, we introduced the Tourism Workers' Pension Scheme, becoming the only country in the world with a comprehensive pension plan for tourism workers. Just last week, we launched the Jamaica Entertainers and Creatives Insurance Plan. In the last budget, we increased the allocation to PATH by approximately 30%. And the big one, we are currently working on introducing unemployment insurance. More fundamentally, it is critical that we find a way to enable individuals and families to escape the cycle of generational poverty. We are now working on the implementation of a groundbreaking initiative, the Hope for Children Trust Fund, that I had announced in my last budget presentation. Thousands of our children in low-income families reach adulthood without any household savings to give them a start in life. I want you to just consider that for a moment. There are some persons who will start life with the support of their household wealth. It doesn't have to be a massive fortune. They might start with $1 million, or they might start with some inheritance from a grandparent. How much further along in life and their life chances are going to be compared to someone who reached 18 and there is nothing for them to get? No endowment. So if you talk about the inequality in the Jamaican society, if wealth is passed hereditary, then people who have wealth will always have, and people who don't will always have not. So the only way that we're going to in any way try to correct it is by ensuring that we in some way ensure that those who are the most vulnerable get some endowment to start life. And that's a part of the social consciousness of this administration. It's a part of the inclusive nature of the growth that we're trying to promote. So, the Hope for Children Trust Fund will provide each eligible child with a long-term savings account funded through annual contributions from the government. Parents, guardians, and other donors will also be able to make deposits into the account for the future benefit of the child. The accumulated funds, including interest, will be accessible on or after the child's 18th birthday for specific purposes, such as education, purchase of a home, or commercial property for business investment. The central idea behind the program is to provide children with a lump sum to give them a start in life upon attaining adulthood. Any Jamaican child born on or after the 60th anniversary of our independence, that is August 6, 2022, who is part of a Path household or a ward of the state will be eligible for the program. My fellow Jamaicans, we stand at the threshold of an extraordinary opportunity. We have proven that we can overcome challenges when we are united in a common purpose. Together, in just a decade, we have taken Jamaica from the brink of economic collapse to a shining global example of prudent macroeconomic management. Now, let us turn that unity towards building a Jamaica that generates robust, transformative economic growth that creates peace, opportunity, and prosperity for all Jamaicans. Let us use our unity of purpose to create the virtuous cycle. Peace, productivity creates prosperity, and more prosperity creates more peace and productivity. That is where we want to be, in that virtuous cycle. The tagline we are using for this next chapter is ASPIRE Jamaica. Access to economic opportunity for all, inclusive. S, safety and security. P, people and our focus on human capital development. I, infrastructure development. R, reform of the bureaucracy to improve ease, speed, and cost of doing business. And E, economic diversification and the development of new industries. Let us aspire Jamaica. The next chapter will not happen overnight. Just as it took a decade of dedication to sacrifice, to secure our economic stability, achieve economic independence, achieving economic independence and robust growth will require time, effort, and steadfast focus, attention, and commitment. But history has shown us that when Jamaicans come together as one people, there is nothing we cannot achieve. This chapter is about bold action, shared responsibility, and unyielding ambition with visionary leadership. Together, we will create a Jamaica that is not only stable, but thriving. A beacon of hope, resilience, and opportunity for our people. Let us write this chapter together with confidence and pride, knowing that Jamaica's best days are ahead of us. Thank you, and may God bless Jamaica as we aspire for growth.
Right, what a speech. There's not much more we can say. From basket case to global model of fiscal reform, we have accomplished the mission of stability, but that was not the goal. We still need to fulfill our destiny as a great people. Aspire Jamaica, a nation rising to new heights. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. And, you know, it's great to have him as our boss. He works much harder than any of us do. He inspires us to do everything that we do. And I'm very grateful that you all stayed and listened to this policy pivot presentation. And I know some of you may have some questions. We're going to open up for a few questions. Just before we do so, there are going to be other sessions, smaller sessions, where we talk through what the Prime Minister has discussed. So for example, there will be a meeting with the Partnership Council members, so you can go into more details with PM. So if you're a member, you don't need to ask your questions now. There are other opportunities for questions to be asked. And so I'm primarily going to be opening it up to the media. If there's anyone in the media who has any questions in relation to that awesome presentation that was just delivered by the Prime Minister speaking to the new Jamaica. And Naomi, I'll ask you if you see any hands up from the media. I mean, I think they're all just mesmerized by what they just heard.
Okay, I think there's one on that side.
I
Yes.
see the
Dashan
head of the Press
Hendrick.
Association of Jamaica standing up.
Yes. All right, Dashan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Dashan Hendricks from the Jamaica Observer. I listened to your speech. I really like it. But one thing I want to ask you, in planning, you've mentioned about leveling up the skills of the people. But one of the things that I've not heard is how we are going to have the people to execute the plans. I'm talking about our population aging and declining, and what are the plans that are in place, because it has an economic impact. Just to address that.
Yeah, I'm in a way, I was hoping you wouldn't ask a question like that, because I would have to give you a very long answer. So strategy number one is to get more out of the labor that we have. All right, so I agree with you that the demographic changes in Jamaica is cause for economic concern. And when I meet with the private sector and get into granular details about their current needs and projected needs, the solutions don't always readily appear to be politically feasible. So what is feasible at the present time is to, one, maximize the productivity of the labor force that we have, and two, make no mistake, there is still a great deal of underemployment in the country. So it's about targeting your skills policy towards improving the skill level of the existing workforce. So there are some kind of structural realignment within the labor force that needs to take place, and the government will act as the catalyst and facilitator for the restructuring of the skills. I mean, let's face it, there are many persons, let's say, who will claim self-employment. But the issue is they're self-employed because they can't be absorbed into the formal labor market. The blocker for that is skills. Now, if we could get them trained, get them into the labor market, you would relieve some of the frictional and structural shortages in the labor market that now exist. In the long term, tax policy, policies for families, and housing policies, and health policies will be targeted to address the demographic challenges that we face. I won't go anymore other than that. I think people, when I've said these words, will understand what I'm saying. So tax policy, housing policy, health policy, I mean, those are the key levers to address this issue of the demographic changes that are presently inimical to our economic program.
Prime Minister, we have another one. Al?
Good evening, Prime Minister. It's a very worthy roadmap to national development, but I guess it presupposes that you will win the next general election. I must say, how much do you think this will cost the nation? And we're not going to do it through debt, as you quite clearly outlined. So how much do you think it would cost? And do you see this going over a space of 2 terms, a term? How long do you see this?
All right. So that's a very good question. We don't propose anything for which we don't know the impact on the fiscal side. So when it comes to, for example, anything that we're proposing for taxes, if you notice, we haven't said, this is it, this is a specific, this is it. You will get that when Minister Favour Williams presents the budget, because the general parameter is that it must not affect the planned downward trajectory of the debt. I will also say to you that most of what we're doing will be revenue neutral. We're trying to make sure that it does not add an additional tax burden. So some of it will be restructuring taxes. A large part of it, however, will rely upon growing the economy. Growing the economy grows revenues, and growing public revenues increases the ability to address the needs of the population. So that's the general strategy that we are employing. The main rule is whatever we're doing fiscally in terms of incentives or support or whatever must not impact the downward trajectory of the debt.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We have another. Andrea?
Thanks, Naomi. Andrea Chisholm from Television Jamaica. Prime Minister, you mentioned the unemployment insurance scheme, and there have been concerns that this proposed new scheme may have an impact on redundancy payment to workers. So my question is, how will this proposed scheme impact the current redundancy laws, if at all?
My understanding of it and the briefings that I have gotten on it does not suggest that it has any impact on the current redundancy laws. That is something that I will confirm, but my last review of it didn't suggest that there would be an impact. I know that there are concerns in the industry generally for the general reform of our labor laws. But when we contemplated the unemployment insurance, it was not to interfere with what currently exists.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Did I see a hand from a member of the private sector? Mr. Hendrickson, did you? All right, no, I think Andrea then has a follow-up.
Just to get an update, PM, on the status of the Office of the Fiscal Commission. I know Mr. Duncan was appointed to serve as the advisory committee chairman. Will that office be getting the sufficient resources it needs to begin operation fully in January? Because there were concerns.
Yeah, we're targeting the 1st of January for full startup. And the question regarding resources, yes, once, this is almost firmly, firmly ingrained in law. So yes, it will be funded appropriately. It is in our interest that it is funded appropriately, actually. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we're closing out now. We're very efficient. We don't have anything to say at the end. We just want to remind you of what the Prime Minister said. This is all about ASPIRE. It's right here on the screen. Please tell all of your constituents that you interact with about this presentation. It really was full with that roadmap for the future. And I know that all of you here are partners in this, and I thank you all for being here and spending the several hours with us to go through the new Jamaica that we all want to see. So God bless all of you, and God bless Jamaica, land we love.